Good afternoon. Keep up with my phone here so we don't get too far behind on time. It's a huge room. Anybody want to move to the middle? I'll be swaying back and forth. Get a little dizzy. Their doors are still open, so we'll give them just a few seconds to finish crawling in. Did you get your infusion of coffee? I love it. I always get the late afternoon slots, and I sort of have to keep you awake with my bad jokes, and I don't have any, so it makes it even worse. But we try to keep it lively because this is a lively topic. Procurement, contracts. Yeah, all right, there you go. I like this crowd, small but mighty, okay? Good. I have been doing this gig for a while, and I hail from the U.S. I've only had a year of French, so I apologize to my fellow Canadians. I wish that it makes me want to go back and do the refresh class. Ray did an awesome job in the last session. He really queued this session up, right? He set all the foundational elements in place for how to adopt AWS Cloud, what you need to do with the two-pizza team. All those elements are foundational. And frankly, until somebody in the organization that you're working with understands that and becomes a champion of that transition, procurements, it doesn't even make sense to have the conversation. Because generally the procurement person that you're going to talk to, they really, they just got to pull the contract out of the drawer that they've been using for decades, and why can't they use it again, right? It's just a software license or something like that, right? Wrong. Okay, so Miss Jane, can you shut that door for me? Thank you. Let's get started. Make this work. Where do I point it? Yeah, okay. My name is Jane Lacey. I have been at Amazon Web Services in the public sector side of the house since 2012. My first job at Amazon Web Services was to put contracts in place. When I joined, there was zero, right? So this fantastic team of people here in Canada have been working very, very hard to get procurement practices, best practices in play for quite a while, based upon all the hard work that we did in the US and around the globe, as a matter of fact. Why does procurement, first of all, in the room, do we have customers, right? Everybody should be a customer, yeah? All right. You're not customers? Have you all opened up an AWS account? Yes. If not, your assignment, homework, right? Okay. I've got someone here in the front row that can open a phone right here. He could come do a demo for me. I should put him on the spot. Done in 5 minutes, right? And I used to actually do that, but then I got caught up in the Wi-Fi never working, and then I really looked stupid, okay? But that's the beauty of it, right? Because you can log in, get an AWS account, and have a server spinning up in less than 5 minutes. That's not buying hardware. That's not buying software. Cloud is different. How many of you are AWS partners? Love that, because after I did the contracts gig, they said, Jane, how about you go over and start an emerging partner program? So now I work with many AWS partners to develop their AWS technical skills, their procurement skills, their business skills, etc. So I can help with the partner piece as well. But cloud is it's that unique conversation. And like I said, Ray teed it up for me. He said, you got to have this foundational element. You have to have a business champion. Take them with you to go talk to that procurement officer, because that's the last thing they want to learn is something new, right? They want to do what they do best and look at those terms and conditions. Why aren't they the same? Why are they different? It does look different. If you've ever been out to the AWS customer agreement, there are only 14 sets of terms. Yes, there's some subterms in there, but clearly it's a very simplistic contract. I encourage you to go out there and take a look at it. That needs to become the foundational element of your terms and conditions discussion when you're talking about procurement. The opportunity. Why does it even matter that you want to move over to cloud? Well, Ray told you lots of reasons why, and I'm sure today there have been lots of reasons why. The opportunity, according to our third parties, because, why listen to me? Did I skip it? Okay. Well, first of all, sorry, that must be the next slide. AWS is in the public sector. And this probably doesn't even come close to articulating what is going on in Canada, so I apologize for that. I think a few of our customers are on this slide. Public sector has really come a long way since 2010 when Teresa Carlson first joined Amazon. And certainly in DC, in the United States, we've come a long way with our government work as well. It's not just government, it's education, it's nonprofits, it's state and local government. Their adoption is slow. Why? Because they're risk averse, right? They don't want to make the front page of the newspaper. They want to take into consideration every piece of compliance that has been drilled down for centuries, literally, okay? I still see terms and conditions coming out of policy that was written 100 years ago that they want us to utilize and put in the contracts, okay? There was an education institution on the West Coast, I won't name names, but literally policy that was 100 years old. All right, but don't listen to me, don't hear it from me, hear it from our third parties. A lot of times Teresa will put up the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? I went out and looked at some IDC reports. This is what the potential that third parties are saying about the cloud market. This is a huge potential. We literally are just getting started. There is potential for everyone in this room, everyone in this building, to do something in cloud for their business. I've put the links in there. These slides will be available. They'll send you a notification of where they are, but please go out there and check out those sites, okay? Because this is important for a third party to be able to recommend what we're doing today in cloud. Sorry, I'm not good with the zapper today. Here's my great partners that are focused on public sector. Again, it doesn't even come close to representing the thousands of partners that are out there. And you might say, ooh, thousands of partners? Well, what am I in that sea of partners? You are very unique. You are one of the first, okay? It is about the technical acumen, the know-with-all that you create inside your business that makes you the first mover in this cloud transformation, this digital transformation that Ray was talking about. We do have many partners, but we need more partners that have the technical acumen to make this technical sale. It is a technical sale. You're not just ordering hardware and parts anymore, folks. It's actually using the tools and services that Amazon Web Services has created and continues to transform that you utilize to have the efficiencies of the cloud. So, again, why is it so important about the procurement piece? Because in public sector, most of the time, with our government entities, with our public education, sometimes with our private education, sometimes with our nonprofits, there's got to be some sort of procurement pathway. Maybe you're lucky enough to get a sole source. Not too much anymore, though, because there's lots of cloud out there, right? So they're going to want to go out to bid because they want everything to be square and fair, right? So the procurement becomes vitally important. I have a whole other team in my partner organization that does nothing but look at the contract pathways on behalf of the partners that I support. Because if I spend all this time developing a partner, getting them to where they know how to utilize the AWS services, maybe they become a reseller of AWS, and they go out, hang up their shingle, got their partner logo up, but they don't have a contractual pathway to go to market in public sector, dime one will not flow. The revenue will not flow. Again, it's because of risk averse in our customer base in the public sector. They're used to deals going years and years and years. They do hardware refreshes. It's very prescriptive. I need 9 servers or 900 servers that can do X, this many gigabytes, hard drives, things like that. Rigid terms and conditions. I want my provider to do X, and they're unwilling to even talk any further about that. Traditional security approaches. I live in Toronto. I have my security policies. Mr. Provider, you meet those security protocols. Has anybody ever looked at the security protocols in the last 10 years? They were probably written 40 years ago at a minimum. Maybe they were added to or subtracted to. Somebody needs to challenge those security protocols, not because they're not good, but because they could probably be made better. And maybe through the utilization of cloud, they can be even better, right? Fixed pricing, predictable payment, all the usual stuff that all of us have done. I came from the hardware world. I know how this works. Okay, so if you want to get broad adoption, right? Because I talked, first of all, you have to have a business champion. You have to have a champion inside the organization. And I apologize, it doesn't have to be a business champion. It can be a technical business champion. Because generally it's the guy who's up at midnight or the gal that's up at midnight playing around in that AWS account. And they get excited about, I just spun up Aurora or a workspaces environment using AppStream or all the other services, and they're excited about that. Or they used Lex skills to develop something for their business or for a personal note. And they get excited and they tell their boss and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is the person that you want to have that conversation with to go have all other conversations or to get more people involved. Generally, in our public sector world, and even in the commercial side of the house, you got to be solving for a challenge, solving a problem. Agencies, our customers in the public sector, they all have a mission-driven, right? They're mission-driven. What is the solution that you need to solve for? It isn't just that you need to go spin up an EC2 instance. Rarely, right? Yes, we can all solve for disaster recovery. We can move the websites over. Those are the easy-peasy stuff. But how about maybe creating the data lakes, as our Canadian customer that was just up here, right? Creating those data lakes in a different way that meets the goals and mission of his customer in a much more efficient, effective manner. That's what he is solving for, and utilizing the tools that Amazon has developed to do that. Then you work with policy, security and compliance, procurement, people, processes, and technology, right? You gotta touch the culture, the change management. If you leave that as the elephant in the room and never address it, it will be slow adoption, if adopting at all. You must address that, change management. You got to take the fear out of, I'm not going to lose my job. I'm the guy that's been racking and stacking the servers for years. I'm going to lose my job if we do this cloud thing. No, let's transition you into a cloud-based role so it can now impact your resume in a positive way. You can now be working in the cloud instead of racking and stacking servers. Address the change management to get to that broad adoption. Who does what in the cloud? This is a really effective slide for when you go in and talk to your procurement folks or getting prepared to talk to your procurement folks. We, early on in the days of cloud with the NIST guidelines, I'm not sure if that's a term that we use up here in Canada, but the NIST guidelines that really define cloud, at least in the US, were around infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. We still talk in those terms, but not as much as we used to. But it becomes very helpful when you have to go have that procurement officer discussion, because they know about SaaS. They know about software as a service really, really well, because they've been doing licensing for a long time. So they get that, right? Now you've just entered their world. You're talking their language. Now you can bring them, work backwards from the SaaS conversation to get them into platform, and then into infrastructure as a service, possibly resell. That's terminology that they understand. And then you talk to them about, this is what the provider's responsibilities are, meaning this is what Amazon's job is, and then this is what you, the consumer of Amazon, your responsibility is in the shared responsibility model. And that's when they start to freak out, because why is this a shared responsibility? Well, with our partners, it doesn't necessarily have to be a shared. explain that so that the partners can be doing a managed service offering where the partner is taking care of everything. Or if you, Mr. Customer, want to buy direct, then this is who is doing what in that scenario. Okay? And you can see, Amazon takes care of a lot of things. And again, that's where the scale and efficiencies come in, as Ray was alluding to earlier. Successful, well-built cloud procurement strategies. Benefits for the end user. Work backwards from the customer. Even for my partners, I work backwards with my partners as well when they're trying to onboard a cloud solution. Performance-based. Prioritize the outcomes. Ray was talking about what is the outcome that the mission is really wanting. Do not recycle the traditional IT approaches. That procurement officer, the minute they pull out that old or existing hardware contract, you can address it by simply saying, that's fantastic. When you continue to buy your hardware, that's a great place to start. But let's take a look at what a cloud contract looks like and work backwards from there. And we'll additively put in the terms that you as a state or a country or a city or an education entity know that you can't live without because of how you mitigate risk. Start from that point. Do not start from the hardware contract perspective. You'll be a long time coming to get to the cloud version of it. Embracing the self-service and pay-as-you-go pricing and allow for rapid innovation. Those are really tough conversations to have if this is a new procurement officer. I've literally had to talk about their Fitbit that they have on their wrist, and we talk about where does that data go? Is that HIPAA related? Who's touching that data? And we have a really frank conversation about things that they're utilizing in their daily lives. They probably have an Alexa sitting on their counter at home, in the kitchen. And it's machine learning capabilities, right? So implore some of those everyday things that they are doing, interacting in the cloud as an individual person, and use those examples in talking about how they can bring that into their agency or where they work. And it helps with that understanding. Rapid innovation is critical because the first term they're going to want in that contract is, I want it to have, you can't change, first of all, you can't change any of the terms, which means you can't change the service terms. If I can't change the service terms, in about an hour, there will be a feature release. And I would have to go get that contracting officer to edit those terms because the service terms probably will be adjusted by 3 words. And then in 20 more minutes, there will be another feature that's been released. Now, we all know if you're already using AWS, you want to be able to take advantage of those service releases immediately, right? Well, you can't have a contract going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Well, how do you mitigate that risk with the procurement officer? Well, you have to put policies into place, just like the existing policies you already have. Oh, that's right, I have policies with my IT department or with the school's procurement people that say, this is what you can do when you're using this device, service, software, whatever, the application, right? Let's take a look at what those policies and procedures are, modify them to take into account these AWS services as well. Oh, okay. Help them with their governance and compliance. Again, it's a tough conversation, but you having the willingness to go deep and diving deep with them about that conversation will go a long way with earning trust with those customers. Involve the key stakeholders early. You might not have ever thought it included all these people, but in public sector, the more of these types of job function folks you can get on your side of understanding, the better, easier it will be to conclude and that first win and or for my customers to get that first workload running on AWS. Really important that everybody have an understanding and are excited about using the cloud. A general understanding of how it can be procured. Like I said, part of my job is making sure that my partners have that contractual pathway. Maybe the pathway, they're willing to agree to the terms, but they don't have quite the technical acumen. So maybe that equals 2 partners coming together to serve the needs of a particular customer. So then a teaming arrangement. Sometimes the entity can buy AWS directly, and for whatever reason, maybe terms and conditions, or that's just how they want to do that, but they themselves don't have the technical acumen to actually do the work in the account. So then they authorize a partner to come in and do the work. So that partner is now the subcontractor or agent in that scenario. There's indirect, where my partners are the prime awardees. Talked about sole source. Again, I don't see it very often. It's got to be a really unique situation. There's framework or IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity type contracts out there, where maybe it's a multiple award, where many partners have been awarded for various types of solutions to give the opportunity to serve whatever the mission is. There's also consortiums. Many of the education entities have consortiums, and this has been going on for a long time too. Maybe there's a geo-based set of colleges or universities. They roll into a membership-driven, what we call a REN, a Regional Educational Network. I know there's several up in Canada because they're my partners. They have earned the trust of those member institutions, and they provide lots of guidance when it comes to their IT purchases and other things. So talking to those REN administrative bodies can help you to get to those institutions in a much more productive manner. They have contract pathways as well. So that's another way to get there. Any questions thus far? Are you still awake? Okay. Let's see. I have to do a little jib for partners, okay, because I came all the way here. You can buy direct, you can add the partner, and that equals a full-scale mission taken care of, right? Or not at all. But these are some of the things that our partners I'm seeing are delivering. Maybe it's just a billing service. I have some universities and some customers who don't want to bother with figuring out how to know when to buy a reserved instance. So they just use their partners for buying and selling of reserved instances, spot instances. Or they are the end-all be-all, I don't want to touch anything in my account, I want you to be my managed service provider. At Amazon, we have audited MSPs as part of our competency program, where a third party has actually gone out. I think there's like 300 items that these guys have to go through, where they are proving out their capability to manage AWS services. Those are audited MSPs. Doesn't mean everybody has to be an audited MSP. There are many managed service provider partners out there today who maybe have a 24/7 NOC support center, but they're taking care in whatever contractual nature that they have agreed upon. We've got resellers. Resellers who, at AWS, you have to be an authorized party if you're going to procure an AWS account and allow somebody outside of your legal entity to utilize that account and provision services on their own. We define that as resell. So you'll come to AWS to get that authorization. We do both commercial authorization and government authorization. So make sure that if you are reselling to government entities, that you've worked with your partner development manager at AWS to seek out that extra program materials, okay? So then that authorizes you to resell, so that, and many times that is necessary contractually because the government entity says, I want contractual access to the account. I'm never going to use it unless you go away. You go out of business. I want contractual access to the account. So then that partner now has to be a reseller, although they might not ever give that access to the account unless a horrible thing ever happens, right? So lots of reasons to be a reseller. Cloud assessments, big thing, right? Lots of our customers, they need that cloud assessment first and foremost, that you really have to define what it is that you're wanting to do to solve the problem or challenge that you're having as a customer So a cloud assessment is the perfect first step. And Ray talked about the cloud adoption framework workshops that we offer. Our partners offer those. We offer well-architected reviews. Again, our partners can offer a well-architected review to check out that architecture to see, is it fault tolerant? And then, of course, implementation migration. I love it when somebody says, let's just go get them to move their whole data center over. Okay, that would be awesome. But there are so many steps that you probably should go through before you just lift it up and shift it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It certainly does. But I think you'll quickly learn that, oh my heavens, that's not running any more efficiently. It's certainly not more cost effective. So you got to do that cloud assessment first and see what applications even need to be moved over or should be moved over into the cloud. I always question big government by saying, do you really need that big application over there? Is there not some way we could use the new tools that are out there to develop a better, well-oiled application? Let's identify and look at what the requirements really are before we start doing that. So anyway, this is a way in which partners can fit if they're needed. Importance of a partner role. Again, technical enablement, business enablement, and sales and marketing. Also, when coming into Canada and certainly going across the globe, there could be language issues, could be currency issues. Partners, again, can step in where Amazon may or may not be carrying that lift or heavy load, and our partners can and are ready and willing to do so. I think we've talked this one to death. Managed services, systems integration, resale, consulting, ISVs. I have ISVs, so the technical. In Amazon, we have two different kinds of partners, consulting partners and technical partners. The technical partners we like to define as those that have developed a technical solution powered by AWS. Maybe it needs a little bit of customization, but not much, and that is the sale. I love my ISVs that have voting. We're in the voting month, right? The voting solutions. And so we build them up. There's a little bit different track for their learning and for them to achieve their different partner logos. Technical partners generally don't resell. Consulting partners do. And consulting partners have a different learning track. And a consulting partner may also have a solution that they utilize in their selling, but it's generally a very small percentage of their overall consulting practice. It's just a tool that it helps enable their consulting practice. Examples of key considerations for cloud procurement, because I'm just going to keep hammering it here, because having that conversation with the procurement officer, you walk out and you think you got it, and they just open their mouth and it's like, wait a second, that didn't make it sound right. Knowing and understanding the difference between these as-a-service things, okay? It's almost like swim lanes. I helped write a paper with 13 state CIOs a couple of years ago, and we were working with the state of Delaware. We were going off of their terms and conditions. They thought of course, they were fantastic cloud terms and conditions. Well, they were for first cut, right? We finally got to the point where we had to create these swim lanes of responsibilities and terms that went with the swim lanes. Once we got the infrastructure, the PaaS, and the SaaS, and actually there's a fourth one, and it's managed services. Once we defined what each one of those equaled, meaning in an infrastructure as a service deal, I will do this, Amazon will do that, you will do this, Mr. Customer. Once those are defined, it becomes very clear what the terms and conditions look like. Oh, well, if I'm the customer, I'm going to procure my own account directly from Amazon. How can I ask Amazon Web Services to check the box on the encryption box? Because there's a box there that you, the customer, can check to encrypt. So you don't need that term in there saying the provider must encrypt all of my data for me. It doesn't need to be there because you as a customer can do that. So you can start articulating and going out there and demonstrating on the console as you talk through these terms and conditions with your procurement officer why it's no longer necessary or why it is necessary to have those particular line items, okay? Use the power of the AWS console to help you get through those conversations. Pace of innovation and tech refresh. I gave the example. Here's the eye chart. It's even more, I mean, this only goes to 2017 because in 2018, we probably tripled that with features and new services. It really comes down to they need to be able to take advantage of the depth and breadth of the innovation. And you got to work through some examples of how, if they don't accept this tech refresh as it happens, how they will not be able to take advantage of them. That's what gets you over the hump in that conversation. We recently had a contract in California where the procurement officer has asked specifically for FedRAMP High services only. Well, our FedRAMP High services are a minimal set of our services. So, we've spent a lot of time educating the state of California about all the things they can't do in the cloud. So after many hard conversations, they said, okay, we'll lower it to FedRAMP Moderate. Okay, baby steps. We're getting there, right? But it's moving in the right direction. It's okay to take the time that's needed to get everybody on board with this whole conversation. Because what do we know about our public sector customers? Once they have the trust, you got to earn the trust and then keep the trust. Then you'll be there for a long time, right? We're all taxpayers, we're all citizens. We've got to earn the trust before they'll really accept this. The net of this slide is about governance, right? The change management that I referred to. You've got to get to the governance conversation, and I'm sure there's a whole book of compliance that's unique to Canada and probably even throughout the different states and provinces of Canada. The point of this is, in the traditional approach of governance, you got stopped at the front door and couldn't get through the front door until all the compliance and governance boxes were checked off, all right? Everything had to be in writing. It all had to be with terms and conditions before you could ever get to the vendor's offerings. Under the cloud approach, because of the built-in tools and the tools that we provide, the tools that our partners supply, they allow you to have this conversation while you're talking to the IT folks, while you're talking to the C-level folks, so that they can understand how these tools can be used to secure, to meet and exceed the compliance that they're so nervous about sharing in order to get from using their on-premise hardware to this cloud architecture. The tools are things like billing alerts, Trusted Advisor, CloudWatch, Identity and Access Management, AWS organizations. The list goes on, not to mention all the third-party tools that are available by our valued partners. Utility pricing, you gotta love it, right? Pay as you go. What a great concept, right? Saves hundreds of thousands of dollars. You get down to a minimal percentage of what they're used to buying, and then they say, but I only know how to cut a check for $50 million. I don't know how to cut a check for $50, and that's all the bill was this month. Oh my goodness, so many things wrong with that statement, right? Again, it's all about what you're missing when you don't come to this. What are the benefits of a pay-as-you-go, only pay for what you use? We have the cloud economics is next after me. I really encourage you to listen in on that. We have a TCO calculator. We have the simple monthly calculator, even though I'll be the first to tell you it's not so simple. But you can get to pretty much a worst case scenario of the cost, of the price, of what it's going to be. Maybe they have to bring in a partner to help mitigate that risk of a fixed price. We have many fixed price contracts that still exist today, but the cost mitigation, you're able to overcome that by utilizing the tools that Amazon has built to help you come up with what's the worst case scenario of that. Then you go back, once you've secured that fixed price contract, let's say that you end up with that because they just can't get past this utility thing, you go back in every quarter and you show them, look, if this wouldn't have been a fixed price contract, you could have saved here or here. Or we could have bought some reserved instances. Continue to demonstrate them the power of the efficiencies of what they're now using so that when it comes up for renewal, they'll have more of an appetite for that. Maybe we need to go bring in public policy. Maybe we need to talk to the policy makers, because I was just out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I had my business champion right in the room with the city of Albuquerque, and he says, I am so bought into this whole thing, but my policy says I can only spend on capital assets. That's it. I would love to do what you're doing, Jane, but that's all I can do. We need to have that public policy conversation. Remember the stakeholder list? That's some of those folks as well. They need to be brought into the conversation to learn about what this means. Okay? Who does what in the cloud? There's security of the cloud. There's security in the cloud. Again, great pictorial that you can bring to your procurement officer to talk about what are the responsibilities of the provider in keeping the workloads or the data safe, and what is your responsibility in the cloud. Many customers just can't get past it, right? And so that's where the partner community comes in, and they have to take the bar where the customer just can't get over it, right? Or maybe they can. And they understand and work through these governance models and policy models that we as Amazon and you as our partners help our customers to overcome to meet the mission. I mentioned the encryption example. Literally, there's a box in there in the console that says, hey, do you want to encrypt this data? I think it's in the S3 buckets. Check the box. Yeah, I want to encrypt my data. I don't know how many conversations I've had with procurement officers that say, make sure my data is encrypted at rest and while it's moving. That's fantastic. You can do that. Well, I don't want to do it. I want you to make sure that it's done. Why? You'll always have to come back to me. If you make me responsible from that, from a legal and perspective, you've got to come back to me. What if it's at 2 a.m.? Right? Don't you want that flexibility, Mr. Customer? Because you're serving the needs of your community, your further on customers. You get to control your destiny of what this stuff does. Audits, real big, right? First question I get is, can I come see your data center? I'm sure you guys get the same. Can I come see that new shiny data center in Canada that Amazon put in there? Let's think about that for a minute. Okay, it's a bunch of blinky lights. Looks great. It's cold in there. And yeah, I'd want 100,000 people parading through there and touching the blinky lights and screwing up the data. We don't want that, right? So it's for security reasons. I think we've actually put a video together that gives a little example of what one of those data centers looks like. So it curbs the curiosity. Well, how about when they say it's by law that we need to be able to come in here and audit your data center? Well, then let's have a conversation about our SOC documentation, our third-party auditor documentation that everybody has access to via the console now, our tool called Artifacts. So you can subscribe to those documents and provide them. These third-party auditors have been in there, and I think they actually do it, I think it's annual. I don't think it's biannual. Annually for those SOC 2, SOC 3. I think the SOC 3s are out there even on the website. It's the SOC 2s that are under lock and key. If you have not, for your own edification, go out and get those SOC 2 reports and read them. I mean, it's great bedtime reading, I'm sure. But it will help you in that conversation when it comes to audits. Again, if it becomes just so tenuous that you've got to bring in policymakers, please raise your hand. Ask AWS for some assistance there. Okay, that's what part of our job is to help you through those policy questions and concerns, because this is standard operating procedure. They're used to this. The law is probably on the book. But the SOC reports should get you through an audit question at all times, okay? SLAs. That's all we've got, folks. 6 of them. and they work the same way for every customer across the globe, because our services work the same way for everyone across the globe. Why don't we have 20 more SLAs? Well, they're not either needed or they're not being asked for. These are the ones that count. These are the ones that matter, okay? If they're not enough for you as a customer or for you a partner, again, this is another place where our partners come into play, because maybe through a managed service, they can determine that custom SLA for you as an AWS customer. I need to be able to do such and such at midnight every night, and I want an SLA behind it. If you don't let me do that, you owe me $5 each time. Okay, if you just simply cannot live without that service level agreement, then that's where we insert a partner who is willing or capable of meeting that need and agree to that in the terms and conditions. But this is what you get from Amazon Web Services, because we do not customize the services. They work the same way for everyone. So everyone gets the same SLA. Terms and conditions. Traditional data center terms with the CSP lead to loss of cloud benefits. I want to lift and shift because then I can say I'm in the cloud. Does that really get you the efficiencies of the cloud? Because if you're not optimizing or creating a fault-tolerant architecture, you're just pulling out the old one that you've been using for 20 years, how does that make the efficiencies, the elasticity of the cloud? Is the application even cloud-friendly? Can it scale without having to go write additional code? These applications must be assessed for their cloud value. Maybe a simple utilization of the cloud tools would make a much better application than the existing one, and you can migrate to the new application versus just porting over the old one and saying, I've met the need, it's in the cloud. Lots of small print there. You guys can take a look at that. Any questions on terms and conditions? Because that's a whole nother class. And I'll bring the lawyers for that one. How can we help you? We've created this website. It's honestly, it's pretty good. How to buy, because obviously I can't get to everybody. And we also have an AWS Contract Center where we try to articulate where there are contract pathways, either via a partner or direct, so that you're not looking too hard to find that contract pathway as a customer and or a partner. But this website has lots of meat behind it. It really does. Our capture folks are very robust at helping shape opportunities, and there's a lot of collateral in there. Capture and proposal support, we offer that to our partners. If they're going after an opportunity, they can use our opportunity registration tool or call up our capture organization through their partner manager and say, hey, I'm going after this RFP or an RFI. Do you have a partner package for me? So not all occasions, but in a lot of occasions, if it's somewhere where we know we can shape for a cloud solution, then we'll put together, if AWS were responding to this RFP, this would be our response to just the AWS pieces. We then, it's the same partner package that we hand off to all of our partners, and then in turn the partner interprets it and includes or doesn't include within their response, weaves it in. All right, not really necessarily a cut and paste, but weaves it into what your response is going to look like. All this guidance that I'm spewing is out there in some cloud procurement documentation. So you don't have to remember what I said, or maybe I didn't say it quite as well. We've got this all documented and it's out there. Case studies, so important. I said work backwards from the customer, work backwards from the partner. Look at some of the case studies that are out there. Who cares that it's in another country? Who cares that it was even a commercial case study? The technology is phenomenal. It's not, you don't need the different technology just because we're public sector. Technology over here is technology over there. It's the same thing. Mission may be a little bit different. The end result may be a little bit different, but go see how somebody else used AWS Aurora. Go see somebody else used workspaces. It can give you ideas to where you can insert this new cloud technology into defining how you overcome where you're being asked to spend less but do more for your constituency. Look at the case studies. Resources abound. Like I said, the cloud procurement best practices, 10 considerations for a cloud procurement. That one's super, super simple. It's like 2 pages long. The first one is the long version of that. The information packages are the partner packages that I talked about. And then, of course, the Gartner, the third-party documentation. We provide links out there to those. So again, don't take it just from AWS. Look at what the third-party folks are saying as well. All right, that's my contact information. I also put my colleague Dave DeBrant, because he is usually the one that takes care of the good folks here in Canada. And he has Kirsten, who works for him as well. I'm happy to put you in touch with any of them, or myself. I'm happy to help. But that's who usually you'll see. He had another trip to go to. So I would be remiss without asking you to complete the survey. And we really appreciate your attendance. There's going to be a break, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer now, or I'll hang for a little bit. Any questions? Yes?
I'm looking at putting together a statement of work for an RFP for a Canadian Crown corporation to get competitive bids on Amazon resellers.
Okay.
And I'm looking for whatever guidance I can find with regard to that. You know, we haven't fully assessed what managed services would be required there. And it's my understanding, in speaking with some of these people here today and in recent weeks, that the managed services are areas of greatest focus for these firms to allow them to grow and grow their competencies, and that the underlying services are smaller profit centers.
Right.
So I'm looking at finding ways to rate these bids, and I wonder what you might have. One of the things I've done is say, give me some examples of some public sector projects, and we'll evaluate how close they are to what we're doing.
Yep.
Anything else you might add?
That's a really good one. I like that, because it becomes very, very difficult to do apples to apples like we did with give me an HP Blade, give me an IBM. It is hard, and I don't have a magic answer for you on that. I like in the Texas DIR cloud contract that they did, they asked the very same thing. I'm going to give you a scenario. Please give me 1 or 2 examples of how you would do that, price it out, and that's how they evaluated. They really got to and I would encourage you to go out. There's a bunch of websites that do host those public procurements and even the evaluations. Texas DIR, Department of Information Resources, is one that puts everything out there, as well as some others. But how they evaluated that cloud contract then. Using the case studies. Also, when you come to the qualification of the partner, I would encourage you to, we have what we call, we're happy to give a letter of support saying, confirming that the partner is, this level of partner, as well as, and then so you can go out and see, are they a standard level partner, that they are a public sector partner, also are they an authorized reseller, and do you really need them to be able to resell? Do you really need them to have a managed service? Or are you talking, I need to be able to procure the account, and then I need you to be able to provide these professional services? The more defined you can get around that, I think it will help you to better evaluate your opportunity. Okay, that's a good question. Because being a managed service provider means different things to different people. Sometimes a managed service provider is, I'll do everything for you. You don't even have to touch that AWS account, okay? Or it can just mean, I'm offering you a couple of hours of professional services. So articulate what you want and need in that provider, okay, is my point. Or if you just need somebody to resell you the account and walk away and just send you the bill each month. That's another mechanism. But then defining, asking for what are the attributes of the partner, and get them to define for you, do they have partner competencies with AWS? Have they achieved those competencies? Because today now we offer our partners the capabilities to demonstrate Are you really good at DevOps? Are you really good at Microsoft workloads? Are you really good at, what's another one? Security. And so if they've passed those third-party audits, we give them that stamp. You are an advanced level partner with the security competency, and that's on the public website. So many of our capture shapings equal those attributes. And it should give you an added layer of confidence that you're going to get a partner awarded that knows a little bit about what you want to do.
Right, some of those conversations I'm finding that if I approach it that way, by virtue of competencies and drop down, and I end up with a couple who have the correct competencies, that what I'm understanding by conversation, those are not always the best fit, and I will have eliminated some partners.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So then back away from those. Go for of course, qualifications are in all of our procurements, right? Even in the old school. Tell me about where you've done this before. I think in that first document that I said was really long, when you go out to the how to buy page, we actually have some words, shaping examples that we've taken out of other RFPs. There's 35 pages worth of it. Take a look at that document and see if there's things in there that help you. If not, I'd love to connect you with somebody to help you further with this conversation. Okay? Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.